Crocodile Dundee.
Never safaris. I would say that he keeps the charm of Crocodile Dundee, although it's a completely different character. It's likable and funny.
At 85, Paul Hogan has finally reached a moment he avoided for decades, a moment of honesty that cuts deeper than any role he ever played. To the world, Hogan was the fearless Crocodile Dundee, the smiling Australian icon who seemed untouched by fame, pressure, or regret. But behind that grin was a marriage that slowly drained him, a relationship that pushed him to emotional and financial breaking points, and years of silence he carried alone. Now, in the twilight of his life, Hogan is no longer protecting the image or dodging the questions. He is finally speaking about the marriage that nearly destroyed him, the love that began with promise, the battles that followed behind closed doors, and the personal cost he paid while the world laughed along. This is not a story about Hollywood glamour. It's about survival, loss, and why Paul Hogan waited until now to finally tell the truth. In 1985, Paul Hogan was 46 years old when he first met Linda Kozlowski on the set of Crocodile Dundee. By then, Paul was already a household name in Australia, celebrated for The Paul Hogan Show, a comedy series he wrote and starred in that shaped his image as a laid-back, sharp-witted Australian everyman. Yet domestic success no longer satisfied him. Paul was hungry for something bigger: Hollywood. Determined to break onto the world stage, he poured everything he had into Crocodile Dundee, not only playing the lead but also co-writing the script. What he didn't anticipate was that the film would change his personal life just as profoundly as it transformed his career. Linda Kozlowski arrived at the project from a very different path. Fresh from Juilliard, one of America's most prestigious performing arts schools, she was a young actress still fighting for her place in a brutal industry. After small theater roles and quiet auditions, the part of Sue Charlton, a confident American journalist stepping into the Australian outback, became her long-awaited breakthrough. That role placed her directly opposite Paul Hogan, a man nearly 20 years her senior, yet effortlessly charming. From the earliest days of filming, their connection was impossible to miss. On camera, Mick and Sue felt authentic. Rugged meets refined, humor balanced by tenderness. Off camera, it was the lingering looks, shared laughter, and natural ease between them that caught the crew's attention. Paul later admitted, "I knew I was in trouble from the moment I laid eyes on her." Linda, too, acknowledged the pull she felt, once saying, "When we acted together, everything felt so natural that I forgot I was in front of a camera. Paul's humor and warmth made me feel truly safe." What audiences saw on screen was only a glimpse of something deeper forming behind the scenes. Their bond grew quietly, fueled by long days on set and a sense of understanding that felt rare in an industry built on illusion. But as Crocodile Dundee exploded into an international phenomenon, the spotlight intensified. Fame brought scrutiny, and what began as a tender, unexpected love story soon found itself drifting into troubled waters, shadowed by whispers and relentless gossip. But there was something Paul forgot about: his marriage of decades. Long before Linda Kozlowski entered his life, Paul Hogan was known as a devoted family man. He had been married for nearly 3 decades to Noeline Edwards, the woman who stood beside him long before fame found them. They first wed in 1958, when Paul was just 19 and working ordinary jobs around Sydney Harbor. Together, they built a modest life, raised 5 children, and weathered years of financial struggle. To the public, the Hogan household represented stability, a quiet, enduring marriage grounded in loyalty and sacrifice. That image began to fracture in the mid-1980s, just as Paul's career reached a turning point. In 1985, he landed the lead role in Crocodile Dundee, a project that would change everything. On set, he met Linda Kozlowski, a young American actress nearly 2 decades his junior. Though they portrayed lovers on screen, both later maintained that their real connection only developed after Paul's marriage had already begun to unravel. Still, the timing raised questions. In 1986, as Crocodile Dundee became a global sensation, Paul filed for divorce for the second time. The coincidence fueled widespread suspicion. Many wondered whether Linda had played a role in the collapse of a marriage that once seemed unbreakable. Those doubts grew stronger because Paul and Noeline had already divorced once before, in 1981, only to reconcile and remarry a year later. This time, however, the separation was final. Public opinion quickly turned harsh. The Australian press, once proud of Paul as a national icon, shifted its tone overnight. Tabloids seized the story, painting it as betrayal rather than heartbreak. Headlines suggested scandal, and Linda, previously unknown, was thrust into an unforgiving spotlight. She was labeled the other woman, blamed for a family's collapse, and subjected to relentless scrutiny. Public anger only grew when it became clear that while Noeline was left to raise 5 children largely on her own, Paul Hogan and Linda Kozlowski were stepping into the spotlight together. They appeared side by side at high-profile events, walking red carpets hand in hand, smiling for cameras as if untouched by the backlash. To many, it felt like salt in an open wound. Still, despite the criticism, Paul and Linda remained united, and in 1990 they married quietly in a private ceremony, hoping love might finally outlast the chaos that surrounded them. At first, there was a belief that they had survived the worst. Yet cracks appeared almost immediately. Away from the glare of fame, Paul remained deeply traditional. Despite international success, he longed for a simple, family-centered life where home came first. Linda, however, carried a very different vision. Young, driven, and shaped by opportunity, she wanted more than being known as a famous man's wife. After the success of Crocodile Dundee, she hoped to continue acting, travel, and build an identity of her own. Their expectations slowly drifted apart. Paul believed Linda no longer needed to chase ambition and should focus on enjoying the life they had built together. Linda felt increasingly confined by that belief. A close friend later revealed that although she appeared to have everything, she felt as though she was losing herself behind closed doors. When their son, Chance Hogan, was born in 1998, many hoped parenthood would heal the divide. Paul, then nearing 60, devoted himself completely to his child, finding purpose in fatherhood. Linda loved her son deeply, but motherhood did not silence her longing for independence. She wanted to return to her career, while Paul envisioned a traditional family structure with her at its center. Arguments became more frequent, rooted not in anger but in misunderstanding. Linda felt her voice fading within the marriage. Paul felt his sacrifices were being dismissed. Over time, the emotional distance grew wider, until the differences between them became fractures too deep to repair, marking the quiet beginning of an ending neither had truly expected. From the outside, Paul Hogan and Linda Kozlowski still appeared to embody a Hollywood fairy tale, 2 people whose love had leapt from the screen into real life. Yet behind the polished smiles and public appearances, the foundation of their marriage was quietly crumbling. Over more than 2 decades together, what began as deep affection slowly eroded under the weight of differences neither could fully resolve. Linda, once a rising actress with her own ambitions, gradually stepped aside to support Paul and the life they built. As the years passed, those sacrifices began to feel invisible. She didn't resent Paul, but she longed to be seen and valued in ways she felt were missing. Paul, deeply private and reserved, believed love was shown through loyalty, responsibility, and providing stability. To him, staying committed was proof enough. For Linda, it wasn't. She needed warmth, presence, and emotional connection, things that couldn't be measured by success or security. She later admitted that despite being married, she often felt alone. That loneliness settled quietly between them, forming a distance neither knew how to bridge. Paul would later reflect, "I always thought I was doing the right thing, but sometimes that's not enough to make someone stay." It was a late recognition of the emotional gaps that had grown over time. In the final years, those gaps became suffocating. Linda felt her identity slipping away, as though she were living a life shaped around someone else's needs rather than her own. A close friend once shared that she didn't hate Paul. She simply felt she had lost herself. Conversations grew shorter, silences longer, until communication itself became strained. Publicly, they continued to appear united, attending events side by side, but the affection that once defined them had faded. Photographs from those years reveal the truth their smiles tried to hide: two people standing together, no longer truly connected. To the world, they remained a power couple. Behind closed doors, the bond that once held them together had fractured beyond repair, leaving only distance where understanding once lived. By 2013, after years of quietly struggling to repair what had already begun to unravel, Linda Kozlowski officially filed for divorce at the Los Angeles Superior Court. The reason cited, irreconcilable differences, was a familiar legal phrase, yet it concealed decades of emotional distance and unmet needs. Though the separation remained civil, its impact on Paul Hogan, then 74, was deeply personal. Losing the woman who had shared more than 20 years of his life left him shaken, even if he lacked the words to openly express it. Friends later revealed that Paul was genuinely heartbroken. Reserved by nature, he had long believed that loyalty and providing for his family were enough. Court documents showed Linda requested a fair division of assets and spousal support to maintain her lifestyle. Despite his reputation for frugality, Paul did not dispute her requests. He accepted the settlement quietly, acknowledging both her sacrifices and his own failures to give her the fulfillment she longed for. Their marriage, once seen as a rare Hollywood fairy tale, ended after more than 2 decades, marked by both love and silent sorrow. What saddened many was the realization that even the most enchanting stories can fade. Instead of closure, the divorce left lingering emotions and unresolved pain. As Paul and Linda stepped into separate lives, a more honest and fragile chapter emerged. After her 23-year marriage ended, Linda Kozlowski made a decision that surprised many. She quietly stepped away from Hollywood. The world of red carpets, lavish parties, and constant attention had lost its magic. For years, she had lived beneath the towering shadow of Paul Hogan's fame, feeling confined by expectations that were never truly her own. What she longed for now was not applause, but peace. She wanted to rediscover herself, stripped of labels and obligations, and to live on her own terms. That search led her far from Los Angeles to Morocco, a place entirely unfamiliar, yet deeply liberating. In its slower rhythm, Linda found calm, clarity, and eventually, love. The man who entered her life after so much heartbreak was Muley Haid Baba, a local businessman younger than her. Their bond grew not from spectacle but from quiet conversations, shared values, and mutual respect. No longer defined as Mrs. Hogan, Linda embraced independence and self-reliance. Together, they ventured into luxury real estate, building a life that felt authentic and earned. Rare photographs from this chapter show a woman transformed, lighter, radiant, and finally free. Leaving Hollywood was not an ending for Linda, but a long-delayed beginning. Back in Los Angeles, Paul Hogan remained in the Venice Beach home they once shared. Though he was still a national icon with immense wealth, the house felt emptier than ever. The glory of his past achievements faded into memory, unable to fill the silence of daily life. Those close to him noticed a profound change. Linda's absence left a space no success could replace. As age caught up with him and health struggles, including muscle atrophy, weakened his body, the emotional toll weighed heavier still. Paul later admitted that fame and fortune meant little without someone to share life's quiet moments. In the end, what lingered most was not applause, but the ache of love lost too late to reclaim. In a rare interview in 2022, Paul Hogan finally allowed the public a glimpse into the emotions he had kept buried for years. His voice carried unmistakable regret as he confessed, "I once had it all, fame, fortune, and a wonderful wife. But in the end, I still feel like I lost something most important." It sounded like a late realization that Linda had been far more than a partner. She had been the center of his emotional world. By the time he understood that truth, she was already gone for good. Paul never detailed the private conflicts that unraveled their marriage, but his words revealed that Linda never truly left his heart. In another moment of rare honesty, he admitted, "I still think about her every day. Sometimes I wonder if I had changed a little. Would she have stayed?" Beneath the tough, charismatic image that once dominated movie screens was a man weighed down by guilt and unanswered questions. Friends say that since Linda's departure, Paul has never fully opened himself to anyone else. Brief connections came and went, but none could replace what he lost. Now he lives quietly, far from Hollywood's spotlight, appearing in public only on occasion. Recent photographs show an aging figure, often alone, seemingly lost in reflection. He is frequently seen walking the beach in the late afternoons, a place once filled with laughter when Linda walked beside him. Today, only memories keep him company. Meanwhile, in Morocco, Linda Kozlowski has built the life she once longed for, free, fulfilled, and loved for who she truly is, not for an image shaped by fame. She has moved forward, while Paul appears anchored to the past. At 86, Paul Hogan remains inseparable from the image that defined him, the easygoing crocodile hunter who once charmed the world. Though he has long retreated from Hollywood, he recently stirred deep nostalgia with a rare public appearance at the premiere of Crocodile Dundee, the encore cut, a special release marking more than 4 decades since the film's debut. Seeing him return, even briefly, moved longtime fans. Speaking softly at the event, Paul reflected, "I never thought my little film would become a cultural icon. I'm incredibly grateful for the love and support from audiences throughout the years." Today, Paul lives quietly in Los Angeles, far removed from red carpets and camera flashes. Age has not been kind. He has faced ongoing health struggles, including muscle loss and chronic pain, leaving him noticeably thinner and frailer in recent appearances. Yet those close to him say his familiar wit and gentle humor still surface, reminders of the man audiences once adored. Since his divorce from Linda Kozlowski in 2014, Paul has lived alone, though he shares a close bond with his son, Chance. Their time together is simple and private, grounded in everyday moments rather than fame. When asked about his marriage to Linda, Paul spoke with honesty and restraint. "I loved her deeply, but sometimes love just isn't enough. We tried, but in the end, we couldn't walk the same path." Despite once calling their long marriage a lonely chapter, he has also admitted it held some of the most meaningful years of his life. Though no longer active in the industry, Paul has hinted at completing one final project as a quiet thank you to his fans. Time and health may be slipping away, but Paul Hogan endures as a symbol of a bygone era, his life shaped by success, sorrow, and reflections that continue to linger long after the applause has faded.